Revealed, how a single mother's last coins led to an incredible life-changing encounter with a CEO. Clara stood in line at the grocery store, her heart racing as she clutched a handful of coins. The flickering fluorescent lights above felt heavier than ever, and each step she took was laced with anxiety. Bills were piling up, eviction notices lined her kitchen table, and her children's laughter echoed hauntingly as she counted her last few coins, praying they would stretch just a bit further. With tears pricking the corners of her eyes, she thought of Jack, her late husband, and how hard he fought for their family. "Stay strong for them, Clara. Stay strong," she whispered to herself, summoning every ounce of resilience. As she reached the front of the line, she noticed a man wearing a baseball cap and an unpretentious t-shirt. He looked out of place, like a celebrity hiding from the world. Clara tried not to stare but couldn't help her curiosity. Just then, their eyes met. David, a high-profile CEO, had stepped away from his towering world of corporate meetings to seek a fleeting escape from his high-stress life. Clara felt a spark of connection, two lives diverging yet somehow intertwined. "I hope that's enough," David remarked, nodding toward her handful of coins. "It can feel like climbing Everest sometimes, can't it?" His casual demeanor threw Clara off guard. "Yeah, sometimes it feels more like a never-ending uphill struggle," she replied, her voice steady despite the weight on her shoulders. For a brief moment, they exchanged knowing glances that spoke volumes about their respective battles. Before she could say another word, the cashier announced her total. Clara hurriedly dropped her coins on the counter, praying she had enough. David watched as she pressed her palms together, pleading for a miracle in the form of spare change. His admiration tinged with a slight misinterpretation. He saw her as a warrior, resilient and indomitable. "You've got a great spirit," he said, warmth in his voice. Then the moment passed, their brief connection lost in the flow of the bustling grocery store. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Later that week, Clara was invited to speak at a community meeting on economic inequality. The invitation came from a misguided idea that she was a local advocate fighting for justice. With every word she spoke, Clara's voice infused the room with heartfelt passion. She told stories of families struggling to find footing in a world weighted down by injustice. Meanwhile, David sat in the back, feeling the raw authenticity unfurling before him. As Clara's voice grew stronger, he sensed the divide growing not just between their lives but within himself. He admired her resilience, yet the truth gnawed at him. He didn't understand her world at all. And just as the air thickened with possibility, the weight of misunderstanding pulled Clara and David into an uneasy alliance, one they would either bridge or be torn apart by. Can their newfound connection withstand the scrutiny of their distinct worlds? Clara's determination flickered with hope as they prepared to face the challenges ahead, unaware of the storm brewing just out of sight. Each moment hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of possibility. Clara returned home that night with a whirlwind of emotions swirling in her heart. The community meeting had stirred something within her. She felt alive, empowered, but also painfully aware of her circumstances. The apartment was dim, shadows dancing across the walls, echoing the struggles she faced. She could hear the faint sound of her children playing, their voices bubbling with laughter. "Mom! We found our old board games," shouted Sarah, her 8-year-old daughter, as she raced to Clara with excitement. "That's great, sweetheart. Let us set them up." Clara smiled, her heart swelling momentarily at the innocent joy of her children. They deserved so much more than this life of struggle. As she leaned over to help Sarah stack the boxes, the weight of her worries pressed heavily on her chest. She pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the laughter and games, if only for a few hours. Meanwhile, David sat in his minimalist office, the city skyline stretching out behind him. He had been haunted by Clara's words. Her authenticity had stirred something deep within him, something he thought he had buried beneath layers of success. The lavish lifestyle that surrounded him seemed increasingly hollow. He couldn't shake the conviction that he had to do something. But what, exactly? His mind drifted back to Clara's fierce spirit, and a sudden impulse hit him. He pulled up his laptop and began to research the resources available to families in need. There had to be a way he could make a difference, perhaps through his company, or even just by advocating for policy changes. As Clara tucked her kids into bed, holding their little hands in hers, she felt a flutter of hope. Just maybe, she thought, something could change. Maybe David would reach out again. But then self-doubt crept in. Why would a CEO care about her struggles? They were from two different worlds, weren't they? The next day, as she was mindlessly scrolling through her phone during a rare quiet moment, Clara stumbled upon a post about an upcoming charity gala hosted by David's company. The event was aimed at raising funds for education and job training for low-income families. Her heart raced at the thought of attending, but panic washed over her as she imagined the sea of elegant faces. She felt out of place just thinking about it, but beneath the fear, a flicker of determination ignited. This could be her chance to learn, to connect, to advocate for people like herself. The thought lingered, stirring a strange mix of excitement and dread. Meanwhile, David was equally restless. In a casual meeting with his team, he found himself advocating for a partnership with local organizations working on economic development. He could sense the skepticism in the room, but Clara's spirit echoed in his mind. He was ready to push for real changes. As Clara watched her children sleep peacefully, she whispered, "Maybe it's time to fight back. Maybe I can't change everything, but I can change something." With newfound resolve, she grabbed a pen and paper, writing down her ideas for how to reach out to David. What neither of them anticipated was the roller coaster of events that would spiral from that charity gala. Just as plans were forming, an unexpected twist threatened to collide their worlds in a way they could hardly imagine. Clara spent her days grappling with the idea of the gala. Each hour was like a test she had to endure, her resolve hanging by a thread. The thought of walking through those polished doors felt like stepping onto a stage where everyone would judge her. Yet, she kept reminding herself, this was not just for her. It was for her children, for families like theirs. It was a chance to reach out to advocate for those who felt voiceless. The morning of the event, Clara stood in front of her closet, her heart hammering against her ribs. She pulled out a simple dress that had seen better days. It was the only thing in her wardrobe that felt remotely adequate. She brushed off some dust and examined herself in the mirror. The girl staring back looked tired but fierce. That fierceness was real. It was time to shine, even if it meant stepping into unknown territory. As she prepped her hair, her phone buzzed with a notification. David's company had posted an acknowledgement of the charities they would be supporting, and her heart dropped into her stomach. One of those charities was the local outreach program she had fought to keep running when the funding had been cut. This wasn't just a coincidence. It was a sign. She took a deep breath and whispered words of encouragement to herself. This could be it. David, on the other hand, was readying himself for the evening, flanked by his colleagues, who were all too eager to talk about the gala as if it were just another business deal. But for David, it felt different. There was a weight to it, a responsibility he couldn't shake off. As he stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie, images of Clara's passionate face flooded his mind. He had to make this event count. He had to show that there was a bridge he could help build between their worlds. The hall was alive with chatter and shimmering lights when Clara arrived. She lingered at the entrance, feeling her heart race. The laughter echoed like a siren, calling her forth. She squeezed her hands together, willing the nerves to settle. "You belong here," she told herself, moving through the crowd one cautious step at a time. As she started mingling, the conversations morphed into laughter and applause. But the deeper she delved into each moment, the more she felt like an outsider. The visions of wealth and elegance seemed to drown out her voice. Just then, she spotted David across the room, animated as he spoke to a group of supporters. His presence was magnetic, but it only served to deepen her sense of hesitation. "Come on, Clara. You didn't come all this way to hide," she muttered, clutching her purse as if it were a life raft. Each breath she took filled her with a little more courage. Her feet moved toward him before her mind could catch up. David caught sight of her, a grin spreading across his face. He excused himself and stepped toward her, parting the sea of suits like a beacon. She felt a rush of warmth as he approached, the platitudes of small talk drowned out by the drumming of her heartbeat. "Clara," he said, eyes lighting up. "I'm so glad you made it." "Thank you for inviting me," she replied, trying to mirror his enthusiasm but struggling. He didn't seem to notice that as they exchanged pleasantries. David asked if she'd seen the program planned for the evening. "We're highlighting some real stories tonight," he said, sincerity etched in his features. "I want people to know the truth." Her heart raced at the thought of her truth getting told, a tingle running down her spine. "You mean my truth?" she asked tentatively, the words escaping before she could stop them. David looked thoughtful for a moment before he replied, "If you're willing to share it, I think it would inspire many. People need to hear voices like yours." In that moment, Clara felt a tide of emotions surge through her, a mix of fear and empowerment. She realized the path ahead could lead to change, real change. But would she have the courage to step into the spotlight and reveal her story? As the evening continued around them, a sudden hush fell over the crowd. The host stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. Clara's hands trembled as she gripped her purse tighter, her thoughts racing. "This is it," she whispered to herself, but just as the host began to announce the next segment, someone in the back dropped a tray, shattering the initial calm. Gasps echoed through the room. Clara's attention shifted, and suddenly it felt like everything was spinning out of control. She looked at David, and the worry in his eyes mirrored her own. What was about to unfold would change everything. What kind of chaos would that tray of shattered dreams bring? Clara clenched her jaw. In a room filled with elegance, something raw and unsteady loomed on the horizon. The sound of the tray crashing to the ground pierced through the lively chatter, transforming the gala into a tableau of shock and uncertainty. Clara felt her stomach lurch. She turned toward the source of the noise, her breath quickening. The sight of broken glass and spilled drinks drew a crowd of worried faces, punctuating the festive air with an undercurrent of anxiety. David's hand found Clara's arm, grounding her in the moment. "Stay close," he urged softly, his gaze shifting between the growing crowd and her. "We need to see what's happening." Clara nodded, but her heart pounded louder in her ears. "What if someone gets hurt?" she whispered, fear tipping over the edge into those initial doubts she had faced all morning. As they moved closer, she caught snippets of conversation. People were speculating about the waitstaff, some even whispering about a man who seemed very flustered near the stage. Clara's mind raced with possibilities. What if this wasn't just an accident? What if it was a sign? This night held potential, a mix of hope and fragility, spilling out like that broken tray. David squeezed her hand, drawing her focus back to the stage as the host spoke again, trying to calm the crowd. "We'll have a brief moment to regroup, but don't worry, folks. The night goes on." A wave of laughter rippled through the audience, but Clara's heart sank. What did he mean? She wasn't here to witness another polished event marked by superficiality. She was here to make a difference, to raise her voice. The gala was supposed to shine a light on those hidden in shadows, not drown them out with chaos. Suddenly, the mood shifted. A manager stepped out, their tone authoritative yet empathetic. "We regret the accident. It will take a moment to clean. We'll use this time to draw attention to some incredible stories of perseverance, beginning with one of our honored guests." Clara's breath hitched. Was this what David had meant? Her heart raced not just from anxiety, but anticipation. Could she be one of those honored guests? David leaned closer, breaths mingling in the smattering applause that followed. "You should share your story, Clara. This is your moment." "You can do it," he said, his voice steadying her. Just then, the host gestured toward the back of the room, inviting Clara to step forward. The crowd's gaze shifted, and all at once, the attentiveness turned toward her. The reality of her presence hit like a wave. "Me?" she squeaked, her voice almost swallowed by the murmurs around her. She felt small again, like a child called on in class, unsure of the answer. "Yes, you," David urged, his eyes filled with encouragement. "It's your truth that needs to be heard." Each heartbeat became a reminder of how this was more than just a moment, it was an opportunity. Clara faltered but then stood a bit taller, her embarrassment melting into a flicker of determination. She had never been one to give up, even when the odds were stacked against her. The host motioned again, a warm smile now aimed her way. "Clara, we understand you have a story that could inspire so many. Would you join us up here?" As she took a step toward the stage, Clara felt the familiar nerves twist in her stomach. The spotlight beckoned, bright and blinding, but also strangely inviting. It was now or never. She could speak for all the unheard voices, the financial struggles, the sleepless nights, the moments of fierce hope. With each step, she felt the doubts she'd carried for so long begin to lift. Clara walked forward, her heart thrumming, ready to pour out her truth. Then came another crash, a loud thud from offstage that made everyone stop again, turning their heads as if to anticipate what new chaos might unfold. Clara clenched her fists, the air thickening with tension. What else could go wrong? She thought. But then, a part of her whispered, what else could go right? Would she soar to voice what so many felt, or would she falter in her moment of reckoning? The answer felt precariously close. Clara's breath caught as she stood frozen in front of the crowd. All eyes were upon her, their eager expressions sending chills down her spine. She glimpsed a moment of disbelief on a few faces, like they were trying to figure out whether she belonged up there, bathed in the unforgiving glow of those harsh lights. Her heart raced, the thud echoing in her chest. This could change everything. As the murmurs faded, she glanced back at David, who nodded with such fierce pride that it melted away the fear. She was strong, she had to believe that. Clara took one last deep breath, feeling the heat of the moment wash over her, and stepped toward the microphone. "Good evening," she managed, her voice shaky but audible. The crowd quieted down, the energy shifting. "I'm Clara," she introduced herself, forcing a smile through the nerves. "I grew up in a small town with a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. I remember days when we counted every penny even when it felt impossible." She could see the audience leaning in, absorbing her words. Clara recalled the struggle, the stress that came with not knowing if rent would be paid or if school supplies would be affordable. Those memories fanned out like dried petals, and she felt the strength of them fueling her resolve. "Life threw us curveballs. Sometimes we didn't know where our next meal would come from," she continued, finding a rhythm in her thoughts. "But my mom always taught me to hold on to hope. That hope turned into resilience." A ripple of empathy passed through the crowd, each person relating to a sliver of her story. Clara warmed to the idea, realizing this wasn't just her tale, it mirrored so many struggles. Her voice strengthened. "And I stand here today as a living testament to that hope. To the days I fought for my dreams, spent sleepless nights working multiple jobs, and kept pushing forward despite the challenges," she said, tears pricking her eyes. "I want you all to know that no matter how dark things may seem, we are all capable of incredible change." The applause began softly, then crescendoed into a roar. Clara's pulse quickened. She felt as if the crowd was willing her on, lifting her to heights she had never imagined. With each clap, she felt lighter. She realized sharing her truth was empowering not just for her, but also for everyone listening. "Sometimes, it just takes one small thing to make everything shift," she explained, "like a moment when all those last coins in my pocket added up to an extraordinary opportunity." She looked down for a moment, gathering her thoughts, every word now echoing with purpose. Then came the memories of that life-changing meeting, the CEO who listened, who was moved by her story, who reshaped her future with one simple question: how can I help? Clara's voice rose in pitch as she looked into the crowd, her chest swelling with hope. What if we all committed to lifting one another up? Imagine the difference we could make together. As the audience erupted into applause once more, Clara felt a surge of something she hadn't felt in ages. Confidence. In the shadows of that spotlight, she realized she could change lives, not just her own, but others who felt unheard and unseen. But then, as she opened her mouth to close, another crash interrupted the moment. Once more a frantic shout echoed from beside the stage. Clara's heart plummeted. She whipped her head around, dread clawing at her gut. What was happening now? Would this newfound courage eclipse her moment of vulnerability, or would it usher in a twist she never saw coming? The shrill shout sliced through the warm atmosphere, cutting off Clara's words like a cold wind. She turned instinctively, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The crowd was shifting, heads swiveling to catch a glimpse of whatever disturbance was brewing just off stage. A young man, wild-eyed and frantic, emerged from the shadows. His shirt was wrinkled, and his tie hung loosely around his neck. Clara's breaths quickened. Who was he? What did he want? I'm sorry, ma'am, he called, rushing toward her. We need to get her out of here. His hands trembled slightly, and Clara could see the panic etched into his features. The audience murmured in confusion, some whispering to their neighbors, while others pointed. Get who out? Clara asked, her voice trembling but loud enough to be heard over the growing buzz of apprehension. She felt an uncomfortable knot tighten in her stomach. The sense of empowerment she'd just experienced began to flicker under the weight of anxiety. Your friend, David, he collapsed backstage. That statement hit her like a physical blow. Time seemed to freeze. The once supportive crowd suddenly felt like a herd of restless deer, startled and uncertain. Clara's mind spun, disbelief keeping her anchored for a moment before instinct kicked in. She turned away from the microphone, the warmth of the spotlight replaced by a wave of icy fear. Excuse me. She shouted to the audience, her voice sharper now. I need to go. She pushed her way through the crowd, her feet moving on autopilot, heart racing faster than she ever thought possible. It felt surreal, like a nightmare echoed in a dark theater. She couldn't think about her speech, the applause, or the hope she had felt moments ago. All she could think about was David. As she reached the backstage area, chaos reigned. A small group of people was gathered around a sprawled figure on the ground. Clara's heart leapt into her throat. David! She cried, the words spilling out as if that alone might wake him. She rushed forward, kneeling beside him, pushing through the crowd. The sight of him lying there, still and pale, sent a shockwave of fear coursing through her. Is he okay? She asked, her voice shaky, searching the faces of those nearby for assurance. One bystander stepped back, holding a phone. We called an ambulance. They're on the way. Clara pressed a hand to David's forehead. He felt cool to the touch. David, please wake up. She shook his shoulder gently, willing him to respond, but his eyes remained closed. The memories flooded her mind, the nights they spent dreaming of success, the laughter they shared, the moments when their lives felt like pure magic. Just hold on, she whispered, though her own voice quivered. Minutes felt like hours as she fought against a tide of anxiety threatening to sweep her away. Each tick of the clock pressed harder on her chest. The world faded into a blur. With every beat of her heart, Clara began to realize this moment was now the pivotal point of her journey. Nothing else mattered but getting David back. Then it hit her like a bolt of lightning: this was more than just a friendship. This was a bond forged in struggle and laughter, in shared dreams and hopes. Just as she adjusted the pile of coats near David's head, the sound of sirens pierced through the haze. Relief washed over her but was quickly followed by a fresh wave of worry. Please, "Don't leave me now," she murmured, frantic eyes locked onto his still face. She held his hand tightly. As the paramedics burst through the door, Clara felt an unseen thread of hope snap tight, uniting fear with faith. As she leaned into the unknown, what would this moment reveal about the strength of their friendship? Would it weave their destinies together in a way she never could have imagined? The paramedics moved with urgency, their voices sharp and clear as they assessed the situation. Clara, feeling like a ghost floating just outside of herself, held David's hand tightly. She felt the warmth of his skin fading, and with it, the memories that never truly seemed to fade away. "Step back, please," one paramedic urged, as they knelt beside David. Clara reluctantly released his hand, feeling a cold emptiness replace their shared warmth. "What's happening? Why isn't he waking up?" Clara's voice was almost a whisper, laced with fear that threatened to swallow her whole. She stepped back, her heart racing as confusion clouded her mind. "He's just unconscious," the paramedic reassured her, although the unease in Clara's chest didn't evaporate. "We're going to take care of him." Another paramedic began to assess David's vitals, using a small flashlight to check his pupils, while Clara watched in horror, praying that any moment now, he would open his eyes and flash her that infectious smile. "Please, come back to us," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was speaking into the air or straight to David. All around her, people whispered. She imagined them wondering what had gone wrong, speculating about David's life. More sirens screamed in the background, a reminder of the world outside, one that was continuing on without her, without David. She felt the weight of the crowd pressing against her, suffocating her resolve. Voices around her faded as the panic within was all-consuming, battling against the flickering hope that he would be okay. "Can you tell us anything about his medical history?" one of the medics asked, pulling Clara back into focus. She nodded quickly, trying to gather her thoughts through the fog. "Yes. He has a heart condition. He was diagnosed a few years ago." I didn't know it would be this serious," she stammered, regret creeping into her voice like an unwelcome shadow. The paramedics exchanged glances, their demeanor professional yet alert. "Can you give us his emergency contact information? We need someone to inform as soon as we get him to the hospital." Her heart sank as she thought of how fragile life could be. All the hopes she had for the future seemed to hang in the air, unanchored, ready to drift away to some uncertain place. His family. Clara hesitated, suddenly unsure of how to connect the dots in her mind. David had always said he didn't need family, hadn't he even kept in touch with them? It had always been the two of them, sharing dreams and navigating life together. "Hey," a warm voice came from her side. It was the wild-eyed young man from earlier. "Are you okay?" His concern was genuine. Clara could feel the weight of his gaze on her, urging her to breathe, to hold on. "No, I'm not," she breathed, tears forming in her eyes. "David needs me here and I'm losing him." "No, you can't think like that." He stepped closer, eyes intense. "You have to be strong. He needs you to fight for him." The words hung in the air, resonating deep within her. Clara felt a flicker of something ignite inside her, determination or perhaps anger at the thought of losing him. Lights flashed as the ambulance doors swung open, and the paramedics lifted David onto the stretcher. Clara felt her heart constrict with each jolt, each movement a reminder of how precarious everything was. "Stay with us." One of the medics called out, urgency in the air thick enough to suffocate. "Where are you taking him?" Clara shouted, her voice desperate. "I need to come with you." "You can follow in the ambulance, but please hurry." Another paramedic gestured for her to move. As she hurried after them, the crowd began to part like the sea, and the murmurs faded once more into the background. All that existed now was David and the hope that he could pull through, that their friendship had the strength to withstand this. Because in the end, she realized, it was never just about dreams or success, it was about the people who believed in you when the world felt too heavy to bear. Gripping the railing of the ambulance, Clara looked back and met the young man's gaze. "Thank you," she managed to say before the doors swung shut. As the siren wailed into the night, Clara could only wonder, was this the moment that would change everything for them both, or would darkness loom too heavily? The ambulance surged forward, lights flashing like desperate stars against the darkened streets. Clara sat in the back, the scent of antiseptic mingling with the chaos in her mind. David lay pale and still, his face a haunting reminder of what was at stake. Every bump in the road sent a new wave of panic rolling through her. It felt like the very ground was shaking beneath her. "Stay with us, buddy," one of the paramedics said, tapping David's shoulder lightly as they worked feverishly to stabilize him. Clara's heart drummed in her chest, her own fear turning into a raw, helpless energy. "David, please," she murmured, squeezing his hand again, hoping her warmth would reach him. She kept her eyes fixed on him, searching the unresponsive face for any flicker of life. Suddenly, an overwhelming thought crashed over her. What if she lost him? What would her life look like without the laughter, the shared dreams, and the deep connection they had built together? It was a black hole of despair threatening to swallow her whole. "Clara?" The paramedic's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "We're going to do our best, but we need to get him to the hospital quickly. Do you have any idea if he has taken medication today?" I don't know," she said, panic rising in her throat. We were just at the cafe. Everything was fine." "Okay, just breathe," he said, his voice steady. "You're doing great. We'll take care of him." The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor provided a heartbeat of its own, urgent and demanding. Each beep filled her with both hope and dread. The sirens wailed, and she glanced out the window at the blur of city lights passing by, each twinkling in stark contrast to the chaos inside the ambulance. "David," she whispered. "You have to fight. I'm not sure what I'd do without you." Time felt elastic, stretching moments into eternities as they raced through the streets. Clara imagined every laugh, every late-night conversation, replaying in her head like a movie. The moments they shared weren't merely memories, they were the fabric of her life. As they navigated through traffic, the medic reached for a small metallic device, preparing to place sticky pads on David's chest. Clara felt her throat tightening again. "What are you doing? Is he okay?" "It's just a precaution." The calmness in his voice contrasted with the panic swirling in her belly. "We're going to monitor his heart." The word monitor spun through her mind. It implied that there was something to keep safe. The young medic's strong hands moved swiftly, and Clara felt a jolt as if a lightning bolt had hit her spirit. She wavered between hope and fear, almost spiraling into despair. Finally, they pulled up to the hospital, the flashing lights casting eerie shadows on the walls as they rushed David through the automatic doors. Clara's heart was pounding, tears streaming down her face. "I can't lose him," she screamed, pushing past the nurse who tried to keep her back. "He's my best friend. I need to be with him." A nurse caught her arm, firm but gentle. You need to wait here. Let me go." Clara fought against the surge of dread that coiled inside her. "He needs me." "Please," the nurse said, her voice softening. "We want to help him, but we need space. Trust us." Clara hesitated, her heart in turmoil. Trust. How could she trust anyone with David's life? But she felt a spark, a flicker of something in the air. Perhaps hope wasn't extinguished. She took a step back, her breath hitching in her throat as she watched the flurry of doctors and nurses rush around him. She needed to fight for David, not just with words but with every ounce of belief she had. Maybe it was time to let go of her fear and embrace the light. Clara turned away for a moment, trying to ground herself in the reality of the hospital waiting room. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that life could shift in the blink of an eye. Maybe it was in moments like this that she would discover the depth of their friendship and the unbreakable bond they had forged. As she sank into a chair, her heart still racing, a stranger approached her. "I heard what happened," he said softly, eyes filled with concern. "Do you want to talk?" Clara looked up, uncertainty flickering within her. I don't know what to do." But as she spoke those words, she was unaware. Unaware that this stranger might turn out to be the unexpected key she never knew she needed. Clara blinked up at the stranger, his warm eyes somehow comforting in the stark white of the waiting room. She could feel the chaos around her subside just a little. There was something about his presence, the gentleness in his approach. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling the weight of her emotions pressing heavy against her chest. "I'm Ryan," he said, extending his hand. "I know this is tough. Sometimes talking helps ease the pain, even if just a little." Clara hesitated but found herself grasping his hand. It was steady, reassuring. "I'm Clara. My friend is in there." He collapsed, and I don't know what's happening. Her voice trembled, emotions spilling over like a dam breaking. "What if he doesn't come back? What if I lose him?" Ryan's expression didn't falter. "You're here, and you care. That counts for a lot. Tell me more about him." Taking a deep breath, Clara began to share bits and pieces of David, her battles with anxiety, and how he had always been her rock. "We were planning to go hiking this weekend," she said, a whisper of a smile breaking through her tears. "He's always pushing me to face my fears." "I never expected." Her voice cracked. Ryan nodded, listening intently. "It sounds like he means a lot to you." Clara's heart ached at the thought. "He's my best friend. We've shared everything. If he doesn't make it." She trailed off, unable to articulate the gaping void that would be left behind. "I get it," Ryan said quietly. "Sometimes, when we face the unknown, it makes us realize just how much someone means to us." His eyes glued to hers, he continued. "Have you talked to him about your fears, your dreams? The things you want to accomplish?" "No," Clara said, shaking her head. "It's hard to open up like that. I never wanted to burden him with my issues." Ryan leaned in slightly, his voice dropping. "Don't you see? It's not a burden. It's a part of being friends. Trusting someone with all of your imperfections makes everything more real." Clara felt warmth spreading through her, sparked by his words. "You think he'd understand?" "Absolutely. If he's your friend, he'll want to support you, just like you're supporting him now." Just then, the automatic doors slid open, and Clara's heart jerked in her chest. A doctor in scrubs stepped through, wiping his hands on a towel. Clara's breath stopped as she caught a glimpse of hope and dread mixed in his expression. "Clara?" he called softly. The room seemed to shrink around her. "Yes. What's happening? Is David okay?" She surged forward, nearly tripping over her own feet. The doctor paused, looking between Clara and Ryan. "We've stabilized him, but he needs to stay in critical condition for now. The next 24 hours will be crucial." Clara's heart dropped. "Critical? Will he?" "We can't guarantee anything," he replied, his face somber yet caring. "But he's fighting. And that's important." She nodded, tears streaming down her face, half from relief and half from fear. Ryan stepped closer, offering her a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You need to be there for him when he wakes up," he said, his voice steady against the storm in her heart. "Talk to him, Clara. Let him know how much he matters." "Will you stay with me?" she asked, almost instinctively, the words tumbling out of her mouth before she could think. "Of course," he said, without hesitation. "I'm here for you." As she took a seat again, her mind began to churn. Could opening up really help? The idea felt novel, but the thought of sharing her fears ignited a flicker of bravery deep within her. Just then, Clara glanced up to see a nurse peeking through the double doors, her face intent. There was a promise of more news on the horizon, but what would it be? Would David wake up? And what more would she need to confront not just tomorrow but in the life ahead? A rush of uncertainty swelled as Clara grappled with the possibilities. She only hoped that the conversation that had just begun wouldn't end in heartbreak. But before she could dwell on it further, Ryan spoke again, his eyes searching hers. What if you could finally face your fears, Clara? What if it started right now? The challenge hung heavy in the air, igniting her determination. Would it be enough to face what lay ahead? What awaited her on the other side of fear? Clara sat in the hospital waiting room, her hands trembling as she gripped the seat. Each minute felt like an endless hour, each tick of the clock a reminder of David lying in critical condition. She had never felt so helpless, yet something fierce simmered within her. The fear of losing him mixed with a courage she hadn't fully recognized until this very moment. Ryan remained by her side, his quiet presence a balm for her fraying nerves. Clara, talk to me. What are you feeling? He asked gently, leaning closer, his eyes radiating genuine concern. I don't know. She buried her face in her hands, her heart aching. David has been there for me through everything. It shouldn't end like this. Not now. Talk to him when he wakes up, then, Ryan urged, his tone firm but nurturing. Tell him everything that's been unsaid. Your dreams, your fears, everything. The thought of confronting her feelings shimmered like a beacon in the dark. Shivers danced down her spine. She wanted to know, needed to share her heart with David, to let him know how much he meant. The realization pressed against her like warm sunlight breaking through clouds. I will, she whispered, resolutely. When he wakes up, I'll tell him. Just then, the double doors swung open, and out stepped the same doctor with a somber look. Clara's breath caught in her throat again, hope fighting desperately against fear. She stood abruptly, her heart hammering like a drum, expecting the worst. Clara, he began slowly, David has stabilized since we last spoke. However, he is still unconscious. We'll continue to monitor him closely, but I wanted to let you know he is a fighter. This is a good sign. As the doctor's words registered, Clara felt the weight lift slightly off her chest. When can I see him? We'll likely be transferring him to a regular room soon. The moment he is out, you'll be able to see him. A wave of relief washed over her, easing the tension that had built up in her shoulders. Clara nodded her thanks. Watching him move away, she turned to Ryan, who offered a warm smile, an anchor in a tumultuous sea. See? He is fighting, he said. And so can you. Clara felt renewed strength flow through her. She was ready. When David woke up, she wouldn't shy away. She would speak her truth, strip away the fears, and embrace the connection that had become her lifeline. As they waited, they shared stories, the laughter easing the heaviness of the hospital atmosphere. Even through the uncertainty, Clara connected with Ryan. He became a listener she hadn't realized she needed. With each tale shared, she felt less like an outsider in her own life and more like a participant of her own destiny. Her hope and resilience wrapped around her as tightly as the fabric of her tattered dress. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the doctor returned. Good news, he announced, brightening the dim room. David has been moved to a private room. You can see him now. Clara's heart soared like a kite in the wind. She expressed her gratitude as she sprang into action, her feet carrying her forward as if they knew the way. Stay here, she told Ryan, glancing back with a grateful smile. I'll keep you posted. As she stepped into David's room, her heart caught in her throat. He lay there, still, the beeping machines a stark contrast to the vibrant life she remembered. She sighed deeply, feeling tears well up. Taking a seat beside him, she held his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin seep into her cool palms. David, she whispered, fighting back a wave of emotion. You are the strongest person I know. You can't leave me. I need you. She recounted the events of the gala, her fears, and how she almost remained silent. You showed me how to be brave, and now I want to inspire others just like you inspire me. I realized how important it is to share our voices, and I want to shout mine from the rooftops if it means helping even one person. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she was steadfast. I need you to wake up because I want to fight for you, for me, for everyone who feels like we do. Your spirit has been my light. Please come back to me. The moment stretched as she waited in silence, hope flickering within the shroud of uncertainty wrapping around them both. Then, ever so slightly, she felt a squeeze on her hand. Clara's heart raced as she looked down. David? She called, her breath catching in disbelief. The flutter of his eyelid sent a spark of joy rushing through her, and with that spark, everything changed. When his eyes finally opened, filled with confusion and warmth, she felt the darkness break apart like a shattered glass. Clara? He murmured, his voice hoarse but alive. Yes, I'm here. You're going to be okay, she assured him, tears of relief cascading down her cheeks. You scared me so much. I was afraid I'd lose you. I'm not going anywhere, he replied, his voice gaining strength. We have a lot of work to do, don't we? Her heart swelled with a mix of gratitude and determination. Yes, we do, she whispered. Together, we are going to bring hope to every struggling family out there. Just wait until I share everything with you. David's smile lit up the room, radiating warmth like the sun. In that moment, both of them realized the power of connection and the impact they could make together. And just like that, amid the chaos and fear, they started to weave a new beginning, united in their purpose and mission to uplift, inspire, and change lives. As they began their journey, Clara understood that she needed to be the voice she wanted to hear. The struggle had drawn them together, and now, anchored by love and resilience, they would conquer so much more than their once limited lives. Now is the moment for your transformation to begin. Make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories from Clara and David. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. What resonated with you? And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring transformation. You need to show your support and help spread hope.